Hello, students. How are you all? Hopefully, you will be having an amazing day. I'm Mohammad Naeem Amin Bhatti, and today we are going to discuss what is language. So, there were a number of suggestions in my comment box that we should have a lecture on what is language and its dimensions, its definitions, and how the language functions. So, lots of us talk about the language. So, we will discuss the language here as language is basically a skill and it's a knowledge. That skill, which means that something we do sometimes, like he speaks well but writes badly. Similarly, language consists upon the knowledge that something we know about. As far as the knowledge is concerned, there are a lot of things we use to discuss in our daily life. Like, I don't know much Italian, I don't know how to speak Punjabi, I don't know how to learn about the things, or I know how to learn about the things. I do know much Italian, I know how to speak Punjabi. So, these are some types of the knowledge, and language comprises like it could be defined as a skill and it can be defined as the knowledge. If we talk about the possession, we all possess such type of language through which we communicate to each other, and language is also a tool which we use in day to day life, in daily life. Like a possession means something we have or we possess. I haven't much French or I haven't much vocabulary. These are some of the examples of possession. Or if we talk about the language, what words can I use to describe how? That is a type of tool that how to describe a thing. We talk about more specifications of the language. It's like an event, like something which happens. We sometimes say that I was in the office when the conversation took place. Like it is a consistent form of happening. And language can also be decided as the group identity, something which transmits the culture, the norms and conditions. It's only through our language that we can truly express our identity. Also, the language is an object and a living organism type thing. Like an object, if we talk about an object, that is something which we can describe. This language has a complex structure. That is a type of object. If we talk about these objects, it is not a form of absurdity, and it works like a living organism, like something which is born, lives, and dies. That gradually a new language was born. The 18th century saw the flowering of the language, and that's a dead language. So it means that the language takes birth and it takes place and it always died when nobody is there to speak that language. So, the most valuable possession of man is the language, and it is difficult to think for a society without language. A society cannot propagate without a language. Now, let's move towards the definitions of the language. There are a number of people who used to define the language. The very first person whose definition I have added in this lecture is Professor Robbins. He defines the language as language is a symbol system based on arbitrary conventions. And also, he says that it is infinitely extendable and modifiable to change or to changing the need and conditions of the speaker. Language can also be changed or it can also be verified, or and it is a versatile quality. We talk about the Sapir. Edward Sapir has defined the language as it is a purely human and non-instinctive. It is method of communication, human species, specific species, uniform. He says that it is always species specific means that every species living in the different areas of this world will use to talk in the different languages. It is non-instinctive. A child has to learn language of his society. So Chomsky defines the language as it is the set of sentences, finite or infinite, each finite in the length and constructed of the finite set of the elements. So, if we talk about the characteristics of the language, language has a number of characteristics. That is, it is a mean of communication. While having communication, we use different languages. If we are specific to one language, then we use our own native language while communicating. So, communication is basically done by the use of language. The second specific of this language is it is a common code. It gives birth to the ideas, emotions, desires, feelings, beliefs, and it is always shared by the common code. So these of all things are shared by the language, and a language is a form of common code. We talk about the other means of communication. These are also part of language sometimes, and sometimes these are not the part of language, like the gestures, non-verbal or verbal things like the gesture, nods to move our head in positive way, winks, flags, smiles, and horns, shorthands, dancing, similes, metaphors, etc. These are other mode of the communication, and other means of communications were in the different areas of the time, and different people use the different type of languages like Braille alphabet. Mathematical symbols are also a code, and can be used for the language. Morse code, sirens, sketches, maps, acting, miming or mimicry, etc. Some of things are also the means of communication. If we talk about the other systems with the language, so these are extremely limited, while the language is approximately unlimited. Other systems are not flexible, but language is always a flexible. Other systems are not comprehensive, but a language is always a comprehensive language. The other systems are not perfect, but a language should be perfect. And other systems are non-extensive, while the language is always uh, extensive. If we talk about language as a carrier, so it conveys or it carries the feelings, thoughts, emotions, the gestures, postures, even the vague thoughts also. So it carries human thoughts, philosophy, culture, civilization. If we talk about the shapes of the different language carriers, so it's basically the people's thought, how they used to think about a certain matter. It guides and control the different activities. We can say that language is ubiquitous. It presents everywhere in all activities. We cannot even be sure about the different number of things while unless or until we will be able to describe it through the language. As important as the air we breathe, and it is always species specific, that a species living in a specific area of the language will speak specific area of the world will speak the specific language. Only humans are blessed with the language and specific property of the humans, and humans are called talking animals. So the second most important postulate and specification of the language is it is arbitrary. Like if we can use the symbol and we can use the word as well. Language is arbitrary because it has no inherent basic relation between the words of the language and their meanings. So how a pigeon can be called pigeon, we have no inherent basic for that, but we do know about that it was named as pigeon. So language is always arbitrary. No reason why a female is called women in English, stri in Hindi, aurat in Urdu, zen in Persian, feminine in French. So there is no reason, because it is always arbitrary, that why to speak or why to call a woman a woman. So selection of these words in the language is purely arbitrary and accident of the history. Advantages of the language arbitrariness: it deals with a variety of languages. There would have been only one language which permits the change. It's conventionally basically gives the stability to the thoughts of our mind. The next main thing is onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia means the words which are described through their sounds. That words that imitate the sounds they stand for, like bang. Bang means to explode something, buzz, the bees buzz, and splash sounds, etc. Such words do have some relationship with the meanings, ideas they stand for, not completely intrinsic in the relationship, like kokla do, dilly do, which means that we are not quite sure that what we are going to say about it. So, we can discuss these features in our language lecture today. For the second lecture, you may proceed to my YouTube channel and can find out the second lecture comprises on this particular topic. So, so far, it's goodbye from me.